Tonight we begin with a Fox News alert. Tonight, a monumental win for Donald Trump and the rule of law. The weaponized, politicized Biden-Harris justice system is now waving the white flag of surrender, thanks, frankly, to all of you, the American people. Earlier today, federal prosecutors, they dropped all charges against Donald Trump stemming from the bogus January 6th case. It is now officially over. There'll be no trial in the Washington swamp. There'll be no conviction. There'll be no jail time. There'll be no fines. On X, President-elect Donald Trump reacted, quote, "These cases, like all of the other cases I have been forced to go through, are empty and lawless and should never have been brought." He continued, quote, it goes on, "It was a political hijacking and a low point in the history of our country that such a thing could have happened, and yet I persevered against all odds and I won." Now think about this. With the election over, the DOJ is suddenly no longer interested. How amazing. In pursuing a case. As we have reported over and over, it is now crystal clear to all. These charges were never about justice, and the American people rejected all of the 9 years of smear, slander, besmirchment, lawfare, weaponization of justice, the politicizing of the FBI and our intelligence community. They rejected it overwhelmingly this past election, as they rejected legacy media, which is dead. Instead, this was always a blatant effort by, unfortunately, actors, Democrats, your federal government, to destroy Donald Trump, prevent him from ever becoming president again. They've tried their best. It is amazing that this man is still standing after all that they threw at him. But the American people, they knew better. And now it's critical that the Department of Justice undergo much-needed reforms. Measures need to be put in place so this can never, ever happen again to anybody, Democrat, Republican. The days of anti-Trump, anti-conservative witch hunts are over. Needless to say, Democrats are not particularly happy. Take a look.
Well, look, I certainly understand why he did it, given the Department of Justice policy that you cannot prosecute a sitting president. I think it is a shame for justice in this country.
Of course, now there's no accountability, either using the constitutional method of impeachment or the courts.
One of the things is we saw all these cases and they never broke through because the media is different.
We're also very worried about what will happen to the rule of law now that these signals are being sent to Trump's base.
You have one man who has managed to really escape justice in all of the various ways that feels very unsatisfying in terms of the rule of law in this country, and it makes us more akin to regimes that we heretofore have denigrated.
There needs to be a little introspection and self-reflection in a moment like this, and maybe the fact that they lied to the American people, they peddled conspiracy theories, they gave selective information, didn't always tell the truth. Maybe that was the reason the American people widely rejected this. But the hysteria on the left, it is now far, it is wide. It appears the self-proclaimed saviors of democracy are having a difficult time with the election results. In fact, at Biden's own State Department, they organized multiple therapy sessions to help their employees cope with Donald Trump's win. According to the Washington Free Beacon, quote, one source describing the meeting as a cry session. Wonder what the mullahs of Iran, Putin, and President Xi think of that. And like almost every major department in the Washington swamp, the State Department is filled to the brim with woke anti-Trump Democrats who, according to one source in the Free Beacon, are unwilling or unable to faithfully serve in the Trump administration. Good. It will be a lot easier time for Elon and Vivek. It will be a monumental task flushing out hyper-partisan bureaucrats out of the incoming Trump administration and really return to constitutional order, which is all I, as a conservative, have believed in my whole life. It has got to be done for the sake of the country and to give Trump any chance to succeed. Here with reaction to all this news tonight, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. You know, I'm watching the reaction, and I think all the stories. I learned a lesson, Greg, and I've told you this before. When I was in Atlanta and I was on the air, I didn't know Richard Jewell, who's accused of being the lone bomber. He fit the profile of the lone bomber because he lived with his mother. And I was on the air at the time, had no idea he was listening. And I learned later that I was the only person he ever heard say, wait a minute, maybe he's trying to save money. You know, maybe that does not make a terrorist out of somebody. And then throughout my career, between vetting Obama when nobody else would, the Russiagate, you were a big part of our team, along with Sarah Carter, John Solomon, Catherine Herridge at the time, so many others. I can't even name everybody. But we unpeeled every layer of that onion, and it took us 3 years. Then we have FISA abuse, and we got to the bottom of that. Then we got to the bottom of impeachment 1, impeachment 2, all of this lawfare. But also, there were other cases. We were right on this program on Ferguson, Missouri. We were right on Freddie Gray, Baltimore. I was right about Duke lacrosse because I took the time to go meet with family members, and I knew they had exculpatory evidence. Right about UVA, and I can continue. The reason legacy media is failing is because they rush to judgment constantly, and they always get it wrong. And they've been wrong about Donald Trump, and they'll never apologize or acknowledge. I know a long statement leading into you, but how does this end?
Well, it ends poorly for Democrats. They overplayed their hand. You know, their 8-year-old lawfare campaign that began with a Russia hoax and ended with these federal cases backfired on them. People resented it. They saw Trump as a victim, not a villain. And, you know, these two federal cases are so typical. They should never have been brought. No fair or neutral prosecutor would have done it. They were purely political, legally anemic. They were based on untested legal theories that were dubious at best and constitutional roadblocks. The Supreme Court blew a big hole in the J6 case on immunity grounds, but they also said obstruction charges you're using, you are misusing them. In the end, there was really nothing left of Smith's cases, especially since the Florida judge tossed the documents prosecution because the special counsel himself was unconstitutionally appointed. So Jack Smith now goes down in history, I think, as the poster child for failed, biased prosecutors who abuse their power. And it's a huge defeat for corrupt lawfare and a big win for Americans in our system of justice, Sean.
And it also, I think, convicts the legacy media because they were complicit the whole way. They wouldn't even vet Kamala Harris. They had 100 days to do so. I think this channel, mostly, nobody, I don't think anybody else more than me played Kamala in her own words. They wouldn't even do that and inform their viewers or listeners. I mean, that's so rudimentary and fundamental. What does it tell you about media today?
Well, it tells us that the media is lost. They have forgotten their role to be fair and unbiased, neutral, to tell both sides of the story. They have become activists with an agenda. And many of them readily say openly that, you know, our job is to serve as the resistance to Trump. You know, Smith's misbegotten cases are so typical of how the media mishandled them. You know, Smith knew that this would happen, which is why he unscrupulously tried to rush the prosecutions before the election. And when he failed, then he attempted to harm Trump's chances at the ballot box by releasing to the public damaging documents right before the election. They were one-sided. They were exaggerated. He violated DOJ rules. You know, and the media let him get away with it, and so did the judge. She said, oh, well, this is irregular, but I'm going to endorse it and let you do it. You know, Smith didn't care about the law and procedure, and neither did the media. They misrepresented it time and again because they had an agenda.
My warning to conservatives is there might be a desire to get back at them. We can't become them. And we have to reject this outright, clean it all up so it can't happen again, and restore constitutional order.